Hello, this is James Daniel for Love Foundry. Welcome. We're doing a short broadcast today on love, and I have called this the sensations of love. And so the reason for that is it's not the sensations we're having when we are in the presence of love, which can be quite extraordinary. It's how we identify through the senses, our outer senses, and then the inner aspect of each of those outer senses, the presence of love. Because if we're intending to empower ourselves with love, this sensory relationship is going to lay the foundation for knowing the reality of it. And knowing the reality of love in your presence is empowerment. Love doesn't wait to empower something, doesn't wait for a request or a suggestion. It is power. And our sensation of its presence transfers that power into action. Sorry, I was tipping over something here because I'm in a relatively confined space. So let's take a bit of a look at that. Now, when we're in the proximity of the opposite sex in what we would call a positively unifying way, we have lots of sensations. Now, we call those often love, mistakenly, but we do, because they are actually sensations often generated by the proximity of love. And the reason that that is true is that love appears where the opposites are unified into a unity. And that unity gives us an opening into the presence of this incredible energy, this energy that life shares with us, gives to us, imbues us with. Now, we don't have to be fully engaged with the opposite sex to experience that, because you yourself, being one sex or the other, have that love in you. It's already there. The incompleteness we feel when we're attracted to the opposite sex, or perhaps the same sex, is simply a condition of incompleteness in our consciousness. It doesn't indicate that we are incomplete. It simply indicates that we don't have a conscious union with the completeness of love. So what's the difference then between what we sense when we feel that completeness and a sensation generated by actual contact with love? Well, at the extreme end of that, the sensation of love is ecstasy. That is a moment of almost virtual complete union with the energetic presence of that physical contact. So the closer we are to ecstasy in any given moment, which doesn't require the opposite sex, it does require the presence of love, the more we're going to experience it. And some people who have experienced an energetic moment, perhaps by themselves somewhere, or they felt an energy suddenly appear around them that made them feel as if they were loved inside and out, that kind of overwhelming sense of being loved comes from the presence of love. Whatever we did to trigger it or enter into it or find its way to us. And interestingly enough, that's happened a number of times with people who have what we would call UFO encounters, which means that it came from space around them, something up in the sky. Did it mean it was an alien from another planet? No. Did it mean it wasn't an alien from another planet? No. What it does mean is that the presence of love was engaged in the experience. And it always has a profoundly inspiring awakening in us. We suddenly feel like, wow, that kind of transcends normal sensorial overload. The reason I'm mentioning this is to show you that it's through sensation that you can find your way into new experiences, experiences that engage you with the direct appreciation of the presence of love itself. If it's going to be overwhelming, which I suppose at the first of the experience with it, it most notably would be, until you get used to the idea of that kind of sensation. And I'm not sure how you get used to the sensation of ecstasy. I suppose anything given a lot of time can become a normal condition. But it doesn't have to be overwhelming physically. It can be overwhelming, and overwhelming physically, by the way, is usually overwhelming emotionally. But it can also be a mental overwhelm. We just feel, look, when you look at a great and beautiful piece of art, we can be overwhelmed. We can look at, and it doesn't matter what that art is. It can be Van Gogh for us, or something else, or it can be something completely different for another person from another culture. It's whatever stimulates our sense of perfect beauty. Or a sunset. A sunset can make you cry because you feel yourself opening out into something that you just can't embrace all of. And the beauty of it overwhelms. And sometimes we are just moved to tears. And that's love. That's the sensation of becoming, to some degree, more complete than we already are. And I'm pointing this out so that we can expect our senses to correspond to an increase in the environment in us and around us of love. So, I'm thinking about this because I want to differentiate to some degree in the minds of others the difference between having a mental experience, an intellectual experience, or an emotional experience of feeling, and a direct appreciation of love, the energy of love in your space, because it will come through the senses. And when it comes through the senses, we tend to think that the senses themselves are the source of love. But they're simply conveying a shadow, really, of that energy through to us, particularly in the emotional body. The emotional body is made up of what we would think of as astral substance. Now, what does astral substance mean? It means substance that is more subtle than physical substance, but yet differentiates itself from air or gas or wet or water or dense physical. It's a more subtle elevation of atoms into something called astral, which is, when it's in us, emotional. And if it's been charged with a frequency by us or by someone else, then that frequency makes an emotion of a certain kind. Joy, well, joy can transcend emotion directly into love. It's like a doorway open into love. But let's be more physically oriented with an emotion. Let's consider an emotion like sympathy, or an emotion like anger, or an emotion like bemusement. You see, we've defined an emotional carrier for a specific feeling that we have experienced in the past or know about. And so when it registers in our emotional body, we remember that that's called bemusement. It makes me feel a little bit humorous towards it, but sort of towards being amused and or make me laugh. So these subtleties of emotion are because emotional substance is charged with a qualification, which tells you that it's very sensitive and can pick up qualifications. And they can be very dense or low frequency, like anger or fear or anxiety, all different levels and gradations. Or it can be upward and towards the euphoric emotions, humorous emotions like hilarity. But this doesn't make them love. But love, should it flood over into the emotional register, has a character and distinction all its own. It's not an emotion. It is love being carried in the emotional frequency, being directed through it to us. And it's not qualified by the emotional entity itself, which, surprisingly enough, is a living thing. The entire astral being, the astral form, the astral creation of the planet is one unified being. In the Hindu conversation, that's called Varuna. But Varuna is not considered to be illumined with love. He's not considered to be capable of responding directly to the energy of love the way Vishnu is in the same Indian conversation. You see, that's a different zone or atmosphere within the universe, within your being. There is a zone, a frequency, which has subtones in it, but one that is compatible with love is named a certain name, depending on which level it is in there. Vishnu, in the case of the Hindu experience. And then below that, in a different level or zone of frequency, is the astral entity known as Varuna. But that does not mean that love isn't there. It means that Varuna is not cascading love out of itself into the space around it or within it, and to those things that are sharing its body in their body. So your emotional body exists because we borrow substance from Varuna, the astral being, just as the planetary being does. The planetary being has an astral body, surrounds the earth, surrounds everything on the earth. And it is no more conscious of love in that body than we are. But if we become conscious of love in our emotional body by opening our sensitivities there to love, then suddenly we are bringing those two into union, so to speak. Now, this fluidity that we're talking about with love happens throughout the universe. But at the bottom of the universe, where we live in the physical world, this kind of sensitivity isn't acknowledged. It isn't recognized. It isn't experienced by us. You don't lay your hand on a rock and then have an ecstatic sense of contact with love through the rock. The rock doesn't know how to transmit it. It doesn't know how to respond to love that it emanates from it. It doesn't mean love isn't there in the rock. There are lots of frequencies of energy in the rock that are not being transmitted to you by laying your hand on it. Is that the fault of the rock, or is that our fault? Well, remember, the hand you're laying on the rock is built out of the same kind of atoms that the rock is. You've got everything in your skin and hand and the senses that are built into the sensory apparatus of your hand that the rock does. It might be a mineral phosphate or a mineral composition. And in your hand, it's subtly different, but you have calcium in your hand. You have potassium in your hand. You have various minerals in your skin circulating through your blood system, just as all plants do. So we're all built out of the same stuff, but that stuff is modified slightly depending on the creature that's carrying it around in it. And most of the minerals in the human body have been curated, so to speak, or qualified, so to speak, or affected in their root energetic life by passing through the plant kingdom before they entered the human kingdom. And if it passed through the plant kingdom into a cow, and then you drink the milk of the cow, you're getting calcium from the cow, but that calcium is not the same as the mineral form that calcium enjoys. So there's a lot of distinctions going on like this. But we're talking about love, which permeates all things in the universe. All emotional substance, all mental substance, all physical substance, and all the substances higher than that in frequency that we have names for depending on which culture we're in. Now, you might call the Archangel Michael or Michael a name, but we're also naming something that has certain frequencies or qualifications. And those qualifications and frequencies are going to be sympathetic to whatever degree Michael is to love, or to cosmic thought, or to some other named frequency of energy, because it's all energy, it's all frequency, and it's all consciousness. Now, we're looking at empowering our lives with love only because the human being up to this time has not been able to open its sensational body to the sensation of love sufficiently to know when it's in conscious contact with it. Because that knowing, that bridge into the contact, feeling that contact, when you touch this, you're feeling the contact with it. You can see it, but that doesn't give you knowing with it. Touch it, and suddenly the knowing of it transmits to your knowing. It doesn't tell you everything about it, but it tells you more about it than you knew. You can't tell this might be a green screen behind me with some projection upon it. But the moment you touch it and see it move and think, then your associational consciousness realizes, oh, that's some kind of a cloth, or that's some kind of a fabric. That's a real thing, not an image thing. So that gives you a different knowing with it than the knowing of whether or not it's a green screen image. So love has to become something so tangible, so awakened to our inner senses, not the outer sense that's touching this, but the inner sense that by reaching in and bringing consciousness of touch into that frequency, gets overwhelmed by that frequency and says, oh my God, that's a tremendous sensation. I wonder if that sensation is love. And if it's a hot stove, it's not love at all. It's matter heated to a point where it's radiating energy, the energy of heat outward. So it goes, don't touch, don't get closer than that, because I can feel the heat coming off of it. But when you put your hand into a field where love is intense, you're going, perhaps, if your sensitivity is opened more, a sensation up your arm. It won't be a sensation of cold. It would be a sensation of response, which would probably sense as warm. But love won't burn you, so it's not going to be that hot. And that sensation has to transfer itself through experience into realizing it's a contact with love. Now, because love is living, that will bring you into contact with the livingness of love. But see, that's going to take time. It's going to take time and experience for us to live in the environment of love and coexist, sensing its activity and presence in our awareness. It's already there in all the cells of your body. It's there in everything. But your consciousness of it comes through the awakening of your inner senses. Now, maybe you didn't know you had inner senses, but you use them all the time. When you're aware of somebody looking at you from across the room, that's an inner sense registering contact with someone's feeling or thought directed at you. And your inner responsiveness brings it to a sense of conscious awareness. And so you look over your shoulder or where and say, who's looking at me? What's seeing me? Well, all of this is growing up into a world that's less tangible to our physical instrument. This part of us. That's a tangible part of us. But your energetic part of you is no less real. It seems less real because you're used to the physicality of contact, of the sensation of pain or the sensation of some kind of extraordinary physical awareness. But extraordinary psychic awareness, the awareness of energies around and in you, moving in and with your inner self, your inner awareness, that could become very tangible and very conscious. So what we would like to develop is an inner sense of the presence of love, the frequencies of love, with us to help offset any inner frequencies of sensation or touch that we don't have any familiarity with, that might cause us fear, that might threaten us. If you've gone into the haunted house, the quote unquote haunted house, of which some places are, and you feel a sense of creepiness around you and a sense of coldness passing through you, or a sense of some presence around you that seems almost tangible, then you would like to have a very strong counter sense of love present with you, inside you, operating through you, giving you a sense of comfort and grounding in this sense of other energies, creating a sense of uncertainty and fear. That's a helpful thing to have if you're in a haunted house or you're in a psychically negative environment, which is pretty much what a haunted house is, or a cemetery or somewhere like that. So there's a world of inner realities, some of which, like the world of matter, this tangible world, don't evidence a constant sensation of love towards us, the way feeling world doesn't, or the thought world, concrete thought world of the brain doesn't. So we're kind of at sea in those energies. We don't want to trust them. We don't want to challenge them. We want to just kind of slide by them, let them go around us, let them go elsewhere. And that's a rational and normal thought, practical thought. That's why we whistle past a cemetery, generate some physical sound to give us a sense of insulation from whatever psychic stuff is hanging around. But when we're in the environment of love, virtually tangible love, or we're generating a sense of camaraderie with love, we're developing a relationship to that, and we're inviting its relationship to come closer to us, then we have a positive sense of confidence in that inner world. And at some point, we're going to realize that the entire universe, all of the lives that make it up, and it's all a living thing, things, various spherically organized sizes of things, solar systems, planetary beings, various things that have no dense physical forms, but live as part of some greater life. All of that is going to become a coexisting with love, with us, universe. And our coexistence with the frequencies of love as an intelligent living presence through our sensational body, through our inner senses, is going to make us comfortable in it and empower us in it and throw us eventually into a tightness of harmony with that energy, so bonded and unified with us that we are virtually invincible. We are virtually inseparable from love, which means we're untouchable by anything outside of love. And this is where we're going. This is why we're empowering ourselves with love. And this is why we talk about it as if it were something other than us, but it isn't. We talk about love as if it were something we were going to make contact with. But you're already in contact with it. You're already bonded with it. You're already created by it, out of itself. It's a vast creator of all things. The gold that's in our teeth, the enamel out of which the teeth are built, substance of the atoms of our body, these are all creations of love, animated by a purpose, a universal purpose. On the planet Venus, the minerals don't create the calcium for teeth. They create something else, according to the pattern needed by the development and evolution of Venus, or the life on Venus that is within it, within its body of experience. So it's all already there. It's all already going on. Now, what's the difference between being conscious of love and having enamel on your teeth? You're grateful that you have teeth. Makes eating a lot easier. So what happens when we become conscious of love within the stream of being that gave us skin and teeth and eyes and all those things automatically? Well, it becomes a conscious relationship. And what's the difference between a conscious relationship and an unconscious relationship? Sensation is one thing, but the capacity to co-create comes with a conscious relationship. You can become a conscious co-creator with love. What would that mean? We don't know until it happens. And then you and love can cook up a creation together. Or you can infuse the creation you have with love, which means starting with your body, for example. So your body has a few wrinkles in it, like mine, or it has a few uncharacteristically designed flaws within it, called disease, by imposing conditions on the body. Too much heavy work, too much injury, too much emotional or psychological abuse. So we end up damaged. And then we suddenly awaken to this relationship to love, and you go, hey, you know, if you've got any capacity or powers in you to help offset some of this damage I've done, this dis-ease in me, I would really appreciate it. And not surprisingly, love, the creator of all things in the universe, does have such powers and can co-create with you a much more harmonious physical experience than you might be experiencing if you have an advanced disease. Now, it won't give you whatever you want, because there are boundaries that we live within that we cannot offset, because there are greater purposes moving in the universe around us than our personal will. And because we are already given permanent life in wherever we happen to find ourselves on this plane of physical materiality or on some other place, because that is not an end to us. It's a continuation due to in a cyclic purpose of life and rebirth and growth and expansion. Love isn't constrained to keep us alive in any particular location. So we don't always have control over what we would like love to do. Make me younger, make me better looking, make me more of this or more of that. But we can certainly ask for it. If we have a relationship with love, we can say, wow, would it be great if I had no disease in me? And there are people who have no disease in them. They might be aging, because aging is a different thing. That's a retreating within of what we're expressing without, which is a natural function of the cycle in which we're outwardly expressing and then inwardly expressing. So within that, though, there are people that at any age are perfectly healthy. And then there are people that are expressing specific dis-ease, liver, brain, skin, cancer, whatever we call these things. That can be helped. That can be changed or transformed depending on the relationship we have to that which changes or transforms it. So I make these points because it's through sensation. Sensations of and with and in love that we can make these appeals, that we can make this bridge, this arc of connection between the subtler energies that live in love, angelic energies, if we think about it as living, and our physical energies. We're as much an angel in the material world as a non-material angel is in the love world. We're just a different type. We're a different kind. And the bridge between us could produce a positive result in our world, or perhaps in their world. We don't know, because the absence of our link to love creates an absence of our link to life in the substance of love as a sensational awareness. So all of this brings us around to the point where if you want empowerment from love in this universe, you're going to have to open up your consciousness directly with love and ask for it, want it, really want it. And when you recognize what it can do for you or the circumstances in which you live or your family lives or your friends live, then you might muscle up a little more clarity, a little more intensity, a little more desire or aspiration to bridge that seeming distance or gulf between you and a direct apprehension through your senses, through knowing of how to employ that energy. And stop questioning whether or not it exists. Stop denying yourself the joys of experiencing love. Because the sensation of love in a human being automatically produces joy. Or the sensation of your own soul, which lives in the kingdom of love. And what is the kingdom of love except an environment in which everything that's there is in positive rapport, internally and externally, with the energy of love? The universal, vital, complete, perfect energy throughout the universe that is called love, or magnetic attraction, if you want to look at it in terms of pure energy. It doesn't matter what you call a thing. It's how you relate to that thing. So there's no point in arguing about it. Don't argue about the words or the definition. Just go past the conversation. Go past the intellectual bric-a-brac and embrace, connect. Give yourself the sensation of direct contact with love. Just give it to yourself. Look within yourself. Isolate the reality of the energy of love and put yourself into fusion with it. And hold that fusion until it begins to grow into a constant state of contact. Are there those beings that have that constant state of contact? Yes, there are. They're called spiritual beings. Are they good at it? Some of them are really good at it. Some of them are just learning how to do it. Some are just wanting to be in contact with it and are in an environment in which it's supported and enhanced. You might find a guru in an ashram, who is in direct contact with that energy and calls it Vishnu, or calls it Sanat Kumara, or calls it Babaji, or calls it one of those names that have been given to beings that are sufficiently integrated with love. And he holds an ashram around him, which is made up of a number of people who have similar interests. They want that themselves. And they might be married and have children out there in the ashram somewhere, out in the yard, playing as kids do, or going to school. And every one of them is at a different location in relationship to this inner union, this inner awakening, this inner contact. And it's not easy to explain these inner contacts to people who don't have any inner sensation of love. So they don't know how to discuss it any more than the Christian religion knows how to easily discuss a union with Christ consciousness. It's possible to have a union with Christ consciousness, to let love open the heart and bring you into sympathy with all things, which love is. Love is in sympathy with all things. And if you are, then you and love share that sympathy. And that sympathy might suffuse your heart with something that makes you glow. Okay. The Christian next to you might have no such contact, but want such a contact, be looking for how to find it. You know, St. Francis of Assisi had such a contact of love, and that's why miracles happened around him. That's why he became somebody notable. But if you lived in his house, it didn't mean that you had the same depth of contact. So this is the awakening and growing into the human race of love. It's coming in all kinds of ways from all kinds of sources. And it eventually becomes a common understood reality through our senses of that part of the universe in which love is the governing conscious connection. Through the senses. Now, how many of those you got? Well, you have 7 that we think of. The 5 that are connected with the physical animal nature, which is taste, touch, smell. What? Taste, touch, smell, hearing, sight. So every one of those relates to a different zone of life. Hearing brings you into a zone of life that you could hear. Seeing brings you into a zone of life that you can see. When you put all these zones together by opening up all your inner senses, then you have a whole environment. And smell, when you smell a rose, what are you smelling? You're smelling its essence. The essence of the rose is in its fragrance, or skunk cabbage, whichever you're smelling. But when you put yourself into contact with the essence of another being, it impacts you on the level of essence. Its essence and your essence are commingling, not with any positive or negative rejection or attraction. That's up to nature to provide, but the fact of the recognition of the essence of something. So these five outer senses, sight, hearing. It's described by one spiritual teacher that in the astral world, or in the emotional world, which is a world unto itself, hearing is not in the ears. You may have ears there. You may appear to be a being with ears, but the sensitivity to the frequency of sound is over the entire body. You hear with the whole body, which is an odd thought, which you might just immediately reject, or you might slow down and think about it a little bit and recognize that there must be a way in which that's possible. Or there might be a way in which it's possible. So these outer senses that are restricted in the material form, which is very condensed to 2 places in the eyes, 2 places in the ears. Remember, you have sensation of touch all over your body. So it's not illogical that you could hear all over your body in some other medium of substance. What sounds like an incredible idea from a sensory point of view at first, then you say, well, what about feeling? Yeah, can you feel with your whole body? So why can't you hear with it? Now, I don't know about seeing with your whole body. That's a different thing. But you see, awareness is not restricted to a specific organ. Perhaps an awareness surrounding your envelope of being in a very more sensitized medium like love will give you the power to see in all directions simultaneously. But how could you do that and register location or thought? It would be overwhelming. You'd be seeing too much because you don't have any organ. The brain can't do it, and you don't have a sensory organ awakened in you, intuitive mind in you, sufficiently to take sensory optical input from 360 degrees in every direction, like a beach ball, and make sense out of it. How do you even locate yourself in it? And if you moved around in it and all that sensory apparatus was changing visual location, you can see that could be disorienting until you learned how to register it properly, which is what a baby does when it looks up and it opens its eyes and all it sees is big looming figures over it going coo, coo, and scare the shit out of it until it begins to recognize, oh, that's mommy, that's daddy, that's the dog, and that's a chair, which you can't run into because it'll bang you in the head and hurt. So you see, we have to grow all of this sensory apparatus into a human construction. And pretty soon we're running around like a 7-year-old, banging into things, but dodging a lot of things. So our inner senses that open us into the world of love in ways that our outer senses don't is coming to us. And it's coming to us gradually so we can integrate it gradually and accustom ourselves to how things work in these different environments. Now, if you're not alive, if you die and you pass into another environment in which the material frequencies aren't concerning of you, in other words, you're not going to break or bounce off of a tree, that doesn't mean there aren't trees there. It just means that the substance out of which they're built and you're built don't crash into each other. We have a different relationship to them. Maybe a more loving relationship, maybe just a gentler one. We don't know for sure till we get there. But all of it's going to happen through opening your senses. The senses of love become your senses. And as they become your senses by experiencing it, you develop data, you take in information, and that information builds knowing, and that knowing gives you contact with the powers and essences, the aspects and attributes of love. And that allows you to let those aspects and essences and attributes come through you without resistance, because you're not rejecting them. You're letting them pass. And that means you have to operate according to the laws that govern love, which means you can't hate things and pass love through to them at the same time. Don't tell me why it doesn't work. It just doesn't. Well, I can tell you why, because love doesn't hate anything. It's not part of its emotional, mental, or sensory apparatus. It doesn't need to. It loves all things, because anything that hates is imperfect, less than whole, less than happy, less than loving. So love completes the perfection by contact with it. So it's not afraid of contact, and it doesn't demonstrate the imperfection that is the absence of love. It completes it. So the sensation of love through you towards something that you might not like is going to be blocked if you don't like it. You're bouncing love off of the sensory apparatus. You're telling it, don't go there. That doesn't deserve love. I don't love that. I hate that. I'm angry at that. I reject that. And love is like, what good is that going to do? Why don't we perfect it? Why don't we love it? Why don't we embrace it? Well, that doesn't occur to us because we don't have the creative power of love that transforms, that transmutes, that unifies, that gives grace upon contact. And as we get to trust love in us, in our senses, we realize that if you let love go through you to make contact with that, it performs its purpose. It transforms evil into good upon contact. It's like, wow, I couldn't do that. I couldn't do transformation. And love is like, well, that's my job. That's what I do. If you let me into your senses and through your senses touch other things, then I'll make that effect with it. Now, you intellectually can't say, oh, well, I got love in my hand here because I'm imagining it and visualizing it. And so I'm going to give it to that and everything's going to be Jake. That may not work out that way because our experience with love isn't complete enough to guarantee that we're doing it the right way. But some beings have such an experience with love or such an immediate surrender as Jesus did. Jesus let love in when John baptized him. And it was like, whoa, this is good. I'll let this be. He had a complete acceptance of it right from the word. And it wasn't long before he was starting to perform miracles by letting love cooperate with him. Starting with turning some water into wine, which for love is like, okay, I can do that. But for Jesus would have been impossible. But now he's got something living in him that creates perfection. And under certain circumstances, as was the case with the bride and groom, was willing to make some water into wine. Now, why that fit the bill, I don't know. But it did. And some other ones, healing people with leprosy and other diseases that are pretty difficult to fix in that day and age. So it's through the sensations within us, the acknowledgement that relationship opens up and becomes stronger and more unified and greater, and brings us into a common understanding and a common co-creation and a common joining. And the more we join with love, the more we join with everything love loves, which is everything. And the more we recognize that in the fullness of love, there isn't anything else. Will and intelligence are in everything. But some things have will and intelligence and an absence of love in our experience, in the way we perceive them, perhaps the way they perceive us. But when love enters that scene, enters that space, and is acknowledged, things change. Things can change dramatically. Well, we won't know how to make those changes occur or how to bring that about or how to relate to it unless we let it happen. Now, the workshop we teach, we don't really teach it. We just hold a workshop, and people who do the things gain those strengths because it's in everybody. You don't have to deliver love to anyone. You don't have to love anyone. Love's already doing that. If you make people aware of love, then it suddenly appears within them, and it's like, wow, where'd this come from? It came from where it always was. It just became something you're aware of, which gave it power in your vicinity. And what made you aware of it? Your senses. Your senses are perceiving it and unifying the perceptions into an understanding. And the understanding becomes knowing. It could become belief at a certain point. You could believe that love is in you, the way I described it. But when it appears in your senses, grounds itself to your contact, then knowing begins to replace belief, just like that. And the knowing brings connection, brings a fundamental activation. And if you don't want love active in you, then your free will has the power to reject it. No, I'd rather keep beating this guy up than I would to love him because I don't like him. He did something that made me mad. Okay, love will go back invisible to you. But when you want it back, you're going to have to find it through your senses to awaken it to you. Make contact with it visually, audibly, touch, smell, taste. You're going to have to invite it to make contact with your inner senses, not your reflective senses, not your eyes that see light reflected from an object, not your ears that hear sound waves coming from somewhere, not your sense of touch that feels something, not your sense of smell that carries a fragrance on the air, not the taste located in the mouth, but from the inner senses that connect directly to love, directly to frequencies and energies of the universe that live inside us. And then we realize that through that experience that the inside of us and the outside of us are not separate. There isn't any inside or outside. There's only us all the way through from spirit at the top all the way down to the physical sensation on the surface of our skin. It's one continuous conscious embrace of all the levels and frequencies of the universe. We got a long ways to go personally before we have that fullness of comprehension and contact and expression. But when we do have it, we will be some kind of beings. But it starts with love. If we want to ever get out of the unmaterial universe unconscious of love. If you want to ever bring consciousness into the material universe and give it a greater depth of meaning, you're going to have to go get love and bring it into you and then radiate it through you and out of you into that physical universe, which is what human beings are designed to do. We are designed to both relate to that life which is unconscious of love, doesn't know all about it, and that inner world that is conscious of love, and love itself. Those three things. So think about the sensations of love. And we'll talk about this again another time, and we'll work on how to open that up, how to make that deepen in us. Because it's time for that to happen. Not next year, not next century, not next decade. Now, starting now. Because it's intensifying in our environment, which puts more pressure on us to recognize it. instead of turning away from it. So it's time to throw yourself at that with a little more openness and a little more willingness to investigate the sensations of love. Thank you for the short time. And we'll talk about this again, and maybe I'll have some friends with us, Seb or Taylor or someone. See you later.